Hi guys, this is Mark Luckenball with Niche Authority Empire, and this video, I would say this module is the most important piece of the puzzle, the most impactful point in our journey, because this is essentially going to determine everything else. So we have to keep a few things in mind when selecting the niche we want to, kind of conquer, the vertical we want to master, and basically this is going to be just a few concise videos, and we're going to cover a few different points, and we're going to talk kind of in depth in some of the following videos. We're going to go through just a lot of cool stuff, and some of the stuff like doing the data research and building the niche ecosystem might kind of seem boring or less than exciting, but we have to keep in mind that this is the most important point. This is building our foundation on which our castle will be built. Our empire will arise from this foundation. So we have to take this serious and we have to get through it. I'll try to keep things as upbeat and fun as possible, but I just need you guys to really focus on this, work with me here, and we're going to work on selecting you guys the perfect niche to move forward and make a lot of money in. So just to get started, and this isn't always a must-have rule. Okay, I mean, some people are driven by monetization, some people are driven by the dollar, and that's fine. But otherwise, if you're going to spend a lot of time working in a specific niche or working with a specific set of entrepreneurs within a niche, it should be something you're either knowledgeable, passionate, and or something you enjoy. It shouldn't be something you just completely hate, right? Or you can't stand the niche. It's boring to you. The nomenclature is just completely esoteric, and you hate it. It's something. It's a pain point, because then it's like you dread working on it, and it becomes a job. We might as well move to a cubicle for a 10 to 6, right? So it should be something you somewhat enjoy or a lot about. It's going to be easy for you to maneuver the waters if they ever get choppy. It'll be easy for you to land clients or partners or build a business in this industry, right? Passion's fantastic. I love helping people build businesses. I love working inside of businesses and building systems and marketing programs, and just really driving clients via offline and digital acquisition. It's fantastic, right? I'm really passionate about it. So I know it's cliche, but I really never work a day in my life. I really enjoy getting to the office. I set the alarm. I get in early. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the people that work in the office with me. So, my passion turns to enjoyment. I'm obviously knowledgeable about it. So, I fell in love with what I do. And you don't have to necessarily fall in love with the industry or the specific niche that you select, but there should be some type of passion or enjoyment, or at least a really deep knowledge base where it's very easy for you to sell the service, or train salespeople how to sell the service more effectively than your average Tom, Dick, or Harry. So hopefully that makes sense. This part is really important, so we're going to spend a few minutes talking about this now, and then I'm actually going to, in a following video, I'm going to deep dive, and we're going to dig through. I'm going to show you guys how to find some data on this stuff. It's a lot simpler than you would think. It's just going out and finding it, right? Thank goodness for the internet, where we just have access to trillions of indexed web pages, right? So something important is that whatever industry or niche you move into, the business model should have a large front-end sale and or a sustainable continuity model. So this is something that can be very relative, okay? One person's large front-end sale might be very different to someone else's, okay? So, you can sell conveyor systems or high-end homes or private jets or jet charters, and, those are going to be a very high end, okay? Another large front end sale might be $5,000 or $10,000 or something along those lines. So I understand large in this case is a very subjective term. Large is going to depend on you, but we definitely don't want to be selling very low dollar things on the front end unless they have the sustainable continuity model, and that's where that comes into play. So if I'm selling something for $20,000 that has a 50% profit margin on it, that's a $10,000. You net a little bit under that, but it's a pretty big front end. There's plenty of room for me to spend on client acquisition, spend on marketing services. I can spend pretty aggressively to bring those customers in. So although I think every business should implement a continuity plan for sure, continuity model, I should say, some type of recurring subscription or just kind of an automatic customer experience where you're, building residual wealth. It's not a necessity. I can still spend aggressively. I can still make, I can still make really good paydays off of that, but that's one half of the coin, one side of the coin. On the other side, businesses that might not have a large front end sale, it's not a super big price tag for the initial touch point, but the continuity model and if the customer retention is on point and whatnot, it can still be pretty profitable. So let's run through a quick example, just because right now I understand this is very high level, it's conceptual, it's we're just talking. Let's actually talk some numbers with a specific business model. So let's say you're a landscaper, okay, and you want to become the niche authority of how to build landscaping businesses and market landscaping businesses and essentially get a ton of these landscaping clients. Here's what something would look like. You'd say, hey, well, and obviously this number I'm going to use is just one variable. It can fluctuate up and down. I think this is a conservative number though, where we say, hey, a grass clipping is going to cost us about $40, right? And that's probably for a pretty small yard in a non-affluent neighborhood. Okay, obviously if you're cutting acre plots in Beverly Hills, it's going to be a completely different variable there. It's not going to be $40 a clipping. It's going to be exponentially more. But let's talk conservatively and just see how the numbers work out on a sliding scale. So it's $40 one time. A lot of people would say, how much can they really spend to get that $40 customer, that $40 job? But then consider that, people are probably going to want their grass mowed and everything edged up and trimmed probably once a week. I mean, that's what we do. So I would assume once a week is definitely a necessity to keep things looking nice. You don't want to have you want to have better grass than your neighbor, right? That's that's a big thing. So that means instead of a $40 sale, we're spending $160 a month now. So the number starts to edge up, and you're still like, hey, Mark, that's still not enough to really justify an aggressive acquisition plan, right? I mean, how much can they really spend of that after you deduce profit margins, right? Like you take out overhead, insurance, employee wages. How much can they really make? So bear with me. For an entire year, right? What is that? 160 times 12, 1900, 19, was it 1,920, right? So that's $1,920 a year, which is, it's still not super high end. I mean, right now you can see, okay, they have a few dollars, even after profit margins. They have some money to acquire clients with, right? And that's cool. Let's say the customer retention is 4 years on that, and I don't know a lot about the landscaping industry. Maybe it's less. Maybe I just doubled what the typical retention rate is. Maybe some companies, I think if you have a client for life program in place, which we'll talk a lot more about in a later module, that isn't that's a likely number. There's no reason your churn rate would be that bad. Especially if you're taking really good care of the client, you have a client for life program in place, and that takes our number from 1,920. If they stay for 4 years, you're now at 7,680. Now we're talking some cash, right? Now we just moved into the upper echelons, and again, large front end's very relative, but we just moved into a different realm, where if you're at 7,680, you have money to spend on getting clients at that point. So let's say we're at like a 20% margin. Okay, on 7680, and 20% I'd say is typical for something like landscaping. Maybe it's a little high. Maybe a lot of them work at 8 to 12% margins. I know some home and construction's just terrible with their margins, but maybe the $40 per lawn was too conservative, so we can get a little crazy on the profit margins. Let's say 20%. That brings us to 1536 net, right? So with over $1,500, let's just call it $1,500 for a round number. It's easier to do the math with. you now have a number you can get aggressive with. If you spend $1,000 to bring in a customer, which we'll show you guys some referral strategies you can help your businesses out with, and just a lot of stuff to position you in a consultative manner rather than, some type of marketer. But if you spend $1,000, that means for every 1,000 you spend, you're bringing in $536, right, in pure profit. So keep those numbers in mind. It's not all about the large front end. If someone has a sustainable continuity model, a solid referral package in place, a referral plan, a referral strategy, I should call it, and client for life, and that really increases the customer retention, decreases the churn rate, that can be a very sustainable niche to tackle. So keep that in mind. An industry, oops, I accidentally jumped ahead. That's okay. An industry that can sustain growth. I'm going to be super brief here, but people are always going to need their teeth cleaned and teeth pulled and fillings and dental implants and whitening services and Invisalign and all of that stuff. People are always going to need lawyers. There's always going to be crime, divorces, estate planning, personal injuries. So there's so many service-based and customer-facing industries that are they're not going to go out of style, right? Keep that in mind. But now let's move into something like, if you would want to be the niche authority on like selling fax machines or everything fax machine. It's fax machines are still used a lot in certain specific industries, but it's not something I would roll the dice on. I would not gamble on that being a sustainable business model for the next 5 or 10 years. The technology's already on the table to completely eliminate the fax machine. I don't know why it hasn't been done yet. Maybe none of the tech gurus think it's even a big enough business to eliminate the fax machine for what they'd have to invest in the SaaS to get it done. I don't know. I could be dead wrong, but I would not roll the dice on something like that as a niche because it doesn't have an upward trend. If anything, it's probably been on a pretty substantial decline for the past 10 years since digital's really been booming and taking off. So I just be careful with the niche. Anything that is client facing, dentists, lawyers, the service-based stuff, there's always going to be a pretty big need for that type of stuff. I know there's all types of tech blogs that say, hey, we're eliminating all these workers with this automation, and that is what it is. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be a massive need for the client-facing stuff for an indefinite period of time, into the foreseeable future, at least. So keep that in mind when you're selecting something. It's cool to really niche down, and you might want to find an industry that's just so untapped. You never talk about it, but it might not have a lot of growth potential. There might be a ceiling very close to your head as soon as you get in, and you want to try to avoid that, right? And one last consideration is the path of least resistance options, and this kind of it can kind of contradict our first point, something in which you're knowledgeable, passionate, and/or something you enjoy. But at the same time, when we first got started with our niche expedition, if you will, my partner had a ton of family that had dental practices. It was his brother, cousin, and uncle. They all had these dental practices, and all of their friends were dentists and orthodontists, and the guys they hung out with all did stuff with teeth, and it was all, he already had a base network. So while he most assuredly was not passionate about it, it's not something he necessarily enjoyed, and I mean, he had a basic knowledge base of it, but he was certainly not knowledgeable. But it was the path of least resistance to start working with these guys and provide solutions for them. It was quick cash for us to reinvest back into the business. It allowed us to work closely with friendly people. People that if we had a question about something we could ask, it wasn't going to be a thing like, oh, you're supposed to be the expert at this. We could really find out a lot about the business model, and we could, ask a lot of questions and, make money while we were doing it. So consider that, look at your network, look at the people around you. If there is an option for a path of least resistance or, anything like that, consider it, guys, because it's awesome to really love what you do and be passionate passionate about it, but it's another thing to say, hey, if I play my cards right and I tap my network, I could potentially have 3 to 10 of these clients in a very short period of time. I can learn the model, and I can be pretty profitable while doing so. So keep that in mind. In the next video, guys, we're going to deep dive into how to extract some of this data, how to put some numbers together, so you guys can just take that next step in selecting an industry. So I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.